Okay, so I'm Sophie Hartman. I run a travel company called Holidays in Rural India, which is established in 2015. And one of my goals over the last few years has been to try and set up multi-day cycling holidays. I'm based mainly in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. I'm associated with a charity called Frank Water Charity. So one of our goals was to take cycling guests to visit Frank Water projects in Chhattisgarh from a base in Madhya Pradesh near Kana National Park, Chairgarh tented camp, where I am now. This has been the first year that we've done the rides, and they've been pretty much a sellout. So I think I've had about 35 cyclists over 6 or 7 tours, so ranging from one couple to a group of 10. Yeah, and I think we'll have more next year. It's been a lot of interest and a lot of positive feedback from them. It's a really lovely way to see it's a really lovely way to see rural India and not be too, it's a part of India that doesn't see many tourists, apart from close to the national park gates. It's a part of India that, really doesn't see very many foreigners. And so to come through it on a bicycle, or be them sort of smart bicycles rather than in a car, just keeps you kind of less of an oddity. You're arriving on a means of transport that people use themselves, not quite such a sort of pour through of people just staring and jumping out of cars and taking photographs. So that's one of the reasons I've really always liked cycling around here. So what the e-bikes add is accessibility for people who wouldn't otherwise be able to do it. That's the biggest thing for people who wouldn't be able to do it, or for people who fear they wouldn't be able to do it. So another example is that in fact, a very good friend of mine joined me on the first ride we did this season, and she is fairly fit, but she was worried she wouldn't keep up, so she chose to go on the Heileo, and then through the course of the week she used the battery less and less and less, and that's another thing I should add about the bicycles, is that they're really good bicycles in their own right. So on the last day, 55-kilometer day, that's quite tough, she didn't use the battery at all. It's added a level of confidence to people who are fit enough but fear they might not be, and it's made it possible for people who definitely wouldn't manage these kinds of distances, or for people who might not consider themselves cyclists, but are joining a cycling holiday. We've got people on who would definitely say, yeah, I'm a cyclist, but I think certainly 2 or 3 of the people who've been on e-bikes wouldn't describe themselves as cyclists, and yet they were able to come on a cycling holiday. So that's a really big thing. Makes a really lovely way of seeing India accessible to people who wouldn't otherwise be able to do it. We had the opportunity over COVID to map out the routes, which was a sort of small silver lining in that horror that was COVID, and set up a 7-day cycling route to start last November. So the first ride was quite an ambitious one, with 10 guests cycling a total of 320 kilometres in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. And before we kicked off, one of the guests asked if she could do it on an e-bike. So I contacted the man who we were hiring us the cycles from, and he said he had one, and that happened to be a Heileo. So I had advice from the guy we hire from and bought from, but I also, he also sent me a link to them and I could look it up. So I have an e-bike. I just bought myself an e-bike in the UK, in France, in fact, where we live, which is a Specialized. And what I particularly looked for in that was that it was lightweight, so that we could cycle as well as you could cycle with the battery on, or with the power assist switched on or off. So that was one of the big things I looked for, that you could cycle it on its own. And the other thing I looked for was chunky wheels, so that we could, a mountain bike type, a hybrid bike, so that it would work on Indian roads, or not roads. We're on a lot of tracks, so that was a big assist thing. Yeah. We had a huge range. We had 2 guys doing the the cycle ride on Daisy bike, and then one lady on the e-bike, and she was incredibly happy with it. It was a great success. It managed the mix of bumpy roads. There's a lot of off-road or forest tracks, some of them quite sandy, and then some steep hills. And the battery lasted pretty well. It was an older version, not the ones we have now. So we took 2 batteries and swapped. In fact, with her, we didn't have to swap. She was quite careful. But then on a subsequent trip, we had a lady who used it quite a lot, and we did have to swap batteries, but they held good. And another thing was that 2 of the cyclists wanted to take the bicycles home with them back to the UK. So there's one was very seriously saying, do you think I'd be able to, get one delivered to Mumbai and take it back on the plane? So there's a market. She said that's another thing, actually. They're really comfortable. My other, I probably shouldn't say the name of the other bike, I don't know, but my e-bike in France is more road bike, and it's great, and I only got it because we do a lot of camping, and so it meant I can keep up with my husband on we live in the Pyrenees, so on mountain roads, but carry stuff. But I'd really be tempted to get one of these in the UK, in France now. It's much more comfortable than any other bicycle I've ridden, actually. Yeah. So for me, I hop on it and go to Bayer. So I'm now liberated much more. So I'm here without a vehicle. So I can now nip off, and it's 12 kilometers up the road to the town. So I can whiz off to do that. Last night I have a friend who's been staying a few kilometers down the road, and so last night, instead of having to call a taxi, I cycled out to her after dark. Feeling completely safe. With the light on the bicycle is extremely good, and it's riding in pitch dark. You've got the occasional car or motorbike coming past, but if you're not past a house, the cycling around here it's full jungle. So it was nice feeling. I ended up spending the night with her, but I could happily have cycled home on the bike. And you feel like you've got the if you feel like you're in danger, you've got the oomph to push the button and whiz off out of any situation. So as a woman, that's it's a really big thing for me. It meant I was, all the drivers around here are blokes, so they're all perfectly nice, but I am basically dependent on a man here if I want to go out after dark, and that's not something that makes me happy. So it was very, very nice to scoot off last night on my own, feeling quite safe. So yeah, so I use it for that. And yeah, I use it just for whizzing around camp. It's really, yeah, it's really comfortable. Well, it's a very nice feeling to be going. So my season is now coming to an end, and we'll start again in November. So it's a very comfortable and confidence-making feeling to be heading into the next season with these bikes on board. And I would definitely think of buying 1 or 2 more. So just nice to know that they work. That's a really nice feeling for me. They work, and they offer something to guests who wouldn't otherwise be able to cycle the long distances that we're doing. In future, yeah, I mean, I'd like to be expanding into other areas of India. One of the other things that I've had difficulties with in the past is finding someone. I can't lead all these cycle tours myself forever, and I need someone else to take that on. But I know from personal experience that it's pretty hard work leading it as a cyclist and as a sort of operations manager. So this would be something I could offer to other people who might be willing to lead the tours. We had someone else lead the last tour, and she did very well, but she wasn't on an e-bike, and she's tired. She did it fine, but she's tired. So it would be lovely to be able to. She was determined to do it on a normal bike, but I think it would be. I think I'd almost like to push it, or to just say, tour leaders have e-bikes. Even a driver said to me on one of my tours, So we had on a big tour, we had a jeep ahead and a driver carrying luggage behind. And at the end of the tour, the driver came up to me and said, "Madam, you should be on an e-bike. I see what you're doing in these tours. You're stopping when people slow down, and then you have to whiz up to catch up with people. You're sort of running backwards and forwards." And he said, "Why aren't you on an e-bike?" And it's like, yeah, you're right. I should be. And I was on the next tour, and it was much, much better. So that's a great opportunity for me. I think it's just, I think it will pull in a lot of customers. I think, guests who wouldn't otherwise consider a cycling holiday. And that's really exciting. I've just come back from a week in Basta in southern Chhattisgarh, where I used to spend a lot of time. But the situation has been quite problematic for some time, but it's in a good state now. And that has some absolutely beautiful landscape that would do really, really well for cycling. So that's my sort of next. Just one of the other great benefits of the bicycle for me is that it's fulfilling a desire that I've always had to keep. People have to take a long haul flight to get to India. That, no one's got the time to work out how to get here overland. So there's a carbon footprint issue there. But I believe that the benefits that can come from good tourism outweigh the downside of coming on a long haul flight. But when people get here, I think there's a lot people can do to reduce their carbon footprint. So cycling, obviously. Most people come to Kanha and they come by car from one other national park. They might fly in from Bombay or Delhi, then often will go from one national park to another, doing 1 or 2 safaris a day, all of which is jeep-based activity. So cycling offers a non-jeep-based activity, and it also holds people longer in one area, which I think benefits the community, and there's also less travel and a lower carbon footprint. So that's another uptick, another tick for me about the bikes, that they help make a low carbon holiday. And also somehow, even if people aren't particularly environmentally thoughtful, when they know that this is what they're doing, they seem to take on other stuff. So every single one of my cyclists this year came in from Mumbai by train, and that's quite unusual. I always offer it to people, and I give a kind of push to people. I make a donation to Frank Water charity for any guest who comes by train rather than by plane. But it was interesting that every single person, without me pushing it hard, but every single person this year took that up. So it's as if they're coming on a cycling holiday, whether it's e-bike or not e-bike, just kind of gives people a feeling that they're doing the right thing, and therefore they do more of the right thing. Yeah, well, it surpassed all expectations. I'm not just saying this. It was more comfortable than I was expecting. It's lighter than I was expecting. And I think the thing I like best about it is that it's a really lovely bicycle to ride with or without the power on. It was just a really nice, smooth ride. The gear changes swiftly. The going up and down with the power was easy. Getting the battery on and off was easy. It's a really, really nicely designed piece of kit. We just had no trouble with them whatsoever. And they've done, well, we've had them for a month, and they've done 700 or 800 kilometers each on some really rough road. And everyone's been delighted with them, not just me. Everyone's been really, really, really happy with them. For me, as a tour operator, it meant I could do the ride, but also not be so exhausted at the end of the day, because there's a lot of work involved in leading a tour that isn't just the riding. We get somewhere, sometimes there's safaris, there's dinners to arrange, meals for the next day. And the huge benefit to me of the e-bike was that I arrived feeling fairly strong, whereas on previous tours I had arrived really, really tired. So yeah, it was good. With the Heileo, I should be, I'm going to be really sad to say goodbye. I'm leaving Kanha tomorrow morning at 4:00 in the morning, and I'm going to be really, really sad to say goodbye to the bicycle. Oh, just without hesitation, say get one. It's life changing in a small way. It just means you get outside more often. You get on the bike when I'm a cyclist, but I'm using this more than I would if I didn't have the Helios. I'm going to get one of these, I think, for where we are in France. It cuts down on your car use. There's absolutely no question about that. We've discovered in France, or I have. My husband's refusing to get one, and one day I'll persuade him. In France, I'm finding that I use the bicycle to go downhill to do the shopping instead of getting in the car. I just think it should take over from petrol and diesel fueled vehicles. I think some people are afraid that if they get an e-bike, it's a kind of step down. And I just think you need to think about it as a slightly different form of transport, a kind of third form of transport. Well, not third, but it's just something new. It's last night it was like being, whizzing along in the dark. It was like I felt like I was slightly on a scooter or something. I had that level of speed and power. And equally, if I want a lot of exercise, I just turn the power off and pedal up a hill. So, it's what's not to like. And they're also a really good price, a really, really good price. Very, very good. So, thank you.